Hi, good morning. I did not expect trees to show up in Death Stranding yesterday. I had been prepared for something to happen. I'd been kind of looking for it for several months. However, I didn't expect that yesterday would be the day. And because that happened, the video I posted yesterday is the biggest video that I've posted, and it's getting the most views of any video maybe that I've ever posted. Seeing those trees juxtaposed with the video that I put up around the same time, I think has just amplified interest in this video beyond what I ever thought it would be. So this is an impromptu video that I'm doing the following morning. The sun is not even fully up yet where I am. My hair is not completely dry from my shower, but I feel like when I made all those claims in that video, I thought that I was going to be making those claims to largely a group of about less than 100 people who were already going to be theory and lore nerds. Those statements, though, seemingly very big statements, to them it wouldn't be that surprising. I mean, we talk about that stuff all the time. However, because those trees showed up, that post about the trees showed up, juxtaposing my video with those trees, it just granted that concept so much more ethos than I could have even. That it's such a huge gift that showed up. This video is intended to be a catch-up for the people who aren't the lore and theory nerds that I originally was aiming at. A few things up front. Giant screen right here where I have made a giant bulleted list of everything that I'm going to say. But everything I'm saying in this is extemporaneous. I turned on the camera. I plan to do this in one take, and I plan to chop it up and then put it up today whenever I'm done. And here's what I'm going to talk about in this video. I'm going to talk about the co-op mechanics. I'm going to give an overview of both the things that I can prove as well as theories that I have. Then I'm going to talk about Bridges 3. Bridges 3 is a new community that I'm starting that is intended to help with this process that we're going to undergo in these videos. That process is also a 3-stage process. This video series is going to be broken up into 3 stages. The first stage is Ethos. In Ethos, I'm going to try and do 2 things. First, I'm going to try to build my own ethos and hopefully prove to you that I'm not full of shit, but also to build the ethos of my argument and build the ethos of this kind of inquiry into, Hideo Kojima's games, but also just games in general. One of the biggest barriers that we face as people who want to theorize about Hideo Kojima's games is that, we show up and there's like a history and people just kind of poo-poo what we say and they just ignore what we say because XYZ. Anyway, stage 2 is going to be Logos. Once we have laid the foundation, we're just going to assume that those mechanics and those systems and all that ethos that we build up in that first set of videos, we're just going to go quickly through the connections. We're not going to sit and try to be convincing. We're just going to go connection after connection, showing how everything links up, building the whole, narrative web out. And then the third and final video, and it will be one video, is going to be called Pathos. And in that video, I will disseminate for you my ultimate take and what I feel the ultimate meaning of Death Stranding is. Another thing I want to talk about is that everything that we talk about in this video and everything that we talk about in this video series, and finally, I'm just going to lob a bunch of connections at you. I'm going to reveal a bunch of shit in this video that you may or probably don't know. So let me first talk about the co-op mechanics. Here is how they work. 2 key aspects that allow you to are the strand contract system and the post boxes. All of the structures can be shared between your individual strand contracted players, but the post boxes are essential. Now, originally in the first Death Stranding, there was no way for you to simply go into your friends list on PlayStation and strand contract with people. That system didn't exist until Death Stranding, the director's cut, came out. At the time when the game came out, though, it had already started the Bridges 3 community, and a bunch of us got together and tested that system to try to see if we could force strand contracts, and we succeeded. The way we did it was that we just dropped 50 ladders in a share locker, usually at the film director, and because that's not a very high traffic area, there's not a lot of people there. And eventually we would see each other's ladders show up, we would take them, and that connection, the package that we would take from the other player, that would allow us to make a strand contract with one another. And we were pretty successful. We had about 15 people that were starting to build strand contracts with one another. That was right until the pandemic happened and kind of put the kibosh on everything, and activity on the Discord server started to wane. Several of us, however, kept testing it.
Odd Peanut.
Oh,
Odd
is
Peanut.
that right?
Oh my
And
god.
we have successfully forced markers into each other's games.
I'm gonna like the shit out of your side. Watch this shit. Watch this. Watch me do this. Watch me work.
And so here's just we have successfully forced post boxes into each other's games. We know that this happens, and we did it in real time. Let me give you a quick breakdown on how I think the strand contract system works from just a systems perspective. When you log into the game, you're connected with 30 players. Those 30 players are random unless you have strand contracted, and then that connection remains. It strengthens your connection. You can have 30 strand contracts in your game. If you fill that strand contract system with people who you know and can communicate with offline in a Discord server, then you can coordinate your deliveries. Now, it also works asynchronously and globally, but for that to work, people actually have to empty share lockers and take those packages to their destination. And who does that right now? Basically nobody. And the concept here is many hands make light work. If you use your strand contract system and you place post boxes in your world, they will show up in your other strand contracted team members' game worlds, and then you can push your items through those post boxes. Let me give you an example of how an order might work. Let's say you go to South Knot and you go to the standard orders list and you just accept every order on that list. But you only intend to go to like 1 or 2 places right then and there. And it's in a direction in the map that maybe the other orders don't go. So you take all those standard orders, you take the cargo for the orders that you're going to take, and you take the other cargo and you put it in the share locker. Then your strand contracted team members can go to that share locker, take all of that cargo, and take it to the destination that they may be going to. Now for you, all of that happens in 0 time because you're offline. It's all happening asynchronously. But when you log back in, if they've taken your stuff to the destination, you just have to deliver it whenever you get there. This allows deliveries to happen much, much faster, and it is part of what you do to unlock. It is part of what you do to unlock things in the game by going very fast and by grabbing every package on your game map. I know that sounds crazy, but you have to grab every package on your game map. When you clean that map, when you start using those post boxes to just sort of sort it out, from a metaphorical perspective, what you're doing is living through the Book of the Dead. You've seen in the game, there's all that Egyptian iconography associated with Higgs, right? That iconography goes much further than it just being, Higgs being, way into Egypt. Death Stranding as a game is essentially the act of going through Egyptian hell. In Egyptian hell is not like hell like we talk about it these days. In Egypt, when you die, you go to this place called the Duat. And in the Duat, it's not like hell, like a hellfire and you just get burned. That can happen. But really what you're supposed to do there is do work. You're supposed to do work. You're supposed to prove your piety. You're supposed to develop yourself. And then you go through a trial at the very end. That trial is called the Weighing of the Heart ceremony. And we indeed have a Weighing of the Heart ceremony in the game. In Egyptian mythology, the sort of underworld, the hell world, is called the Duat. In Death Stranding, the game map is our Duat. In the mythology, the Duat is where you do your works. And once you've done your works, you get to pass on to the Field of Reeds, which is kind of like a paradisical place, like heaven. You essentially use your strands to get you out of hell. See, it's a metaphor. The other piece to the puzzle is you have to understand the lore. Because it's one thing to be able to do those orders fast. It's another to be able to comprehend what to do with those orders, what order to do them in, who to do them for. Now, you might say to yourself, how the fuck do I find 30 people to play with? Well, that has also been my issue, hence the new Discord server. That has been the key thing that has held us back from being able to finish this theorizing. We need 30 people to completely finish testing these mechanics, but also there is a final puzzle in the game. I believe I know how to solve that final puzzle, although there are hints on my channel. So if you want to go look at the shorts that I've been posting over the past few months. So when we made the first Bridges 3 Discord server, there weren't any of the new community features that Discord has recently implemented. Those community features are going to make this so much easier this time around. The server is designed to intentionally address some of the issues with other communities that have had a big impact on our ability to engage in this way. You know, I don't mean to put this in a necessarily a mean way, but just to kind of summarize my feelings on this subject, I'm kind of tired of sitting at the kids' table, if that makes sense. I feel like I've gone to a family reunion and there was not enough space at the adult table, and the kids are just being kids, right? There are communities that if you go into that community and even suggest that any of this stuff is real or accurate, that you will just simply get downvoted and called an idiot. And there are other problems too. Sometimes there are people who make posts on Reddit just juxtaposing two pictures that you don't really see the relationship to. And when you go into the comments and ask them, hey, what is this about? What are you talking about? They just call you a non-believer. And then there's the very smart people who post, you know, giant essay-sized posts in a Discord server, and it's effectively just a gish gallop. How do you interact with somebody who's just trying to show off and pretend that they're all smart? This new server is intended to address a lot of those issues. This server will be moderated. It won't be moderated strictly, but it will be moderated in two ways. The first is that most of the channels in the server are just like any other Discord server channel. You go in, you talk, you have a conversation, no big deal. But the advantage of the new community server features is that we have threads now. This can allow you to only engage with the conversations that you want to engage with. If somebody comes into a thread and starts being a jerk and, you know, telling you you're stupid because you think that maybe the film Dead Man has something to do with the game and you could actually learn something about the game by going and watching the film Dead Man, maybe you're not crazy for thinking that. So you have an escape route. You can just go start another thread. You don't have to engage with people that you don't want to. In the old Discord server setup, you kind of did. If somebody decided they wanted to pop into a channel and just start being really rude or putting a bunch of hate in there, you really can't escape it. This helps that. Now, all of the channels, they'll basically function like any other channel. The theory threads will be moderated slightly differently from the rest of the threads. And that'll happen in a few ways. If you've noticed, in Death Stranding 2, the metaphor has shifted from bridges to drawbridges, right? So if you do any of the things that I've described, if you make people feel uncomfortable, if you talk down to people, if you do it too much, we're going to time you out. We're going to kind of use a little bit of a slap on the wrist method. It's not going to be a strictly moderated server, but there's two ways that we want to moderate it. The first is with the tools, the Discord server tools, and the second is just with a kind of a culture that I hope that we can imbue into those theory channels. Those theory channels need to remain respectful. If somebody puts up an idea, even if you don't agree with it, it doesn't mean that you get to go in there and tell them how dumb they are. So for example, this shit goes too far. You can't talk to people that way. You can't try to, suggest that I'm some sort of flat earther or something just because I'm not like feeding you all the information that you need to understand the entire gigantic puzzle that has to be solved. You can disagree, but you need to frame that disagreement in some way that doesn't function like an ad hoc ad hominem, okay? If you go into somebody's thread, somebody started a thread or a group has started a thread, and you go into that thread and you start telling people how dumb they are and you start being a very smart person and putting up walls of text and people are feeling uncomfortable and they approach a moderator, we will approach you and we will say, hey, here's some things you're doing that are making people uncomfortable. People need to be able to communicate their ideas and not be mistreated for it. We all have cool and interesting ideas about Kojima's work, and all of our theories are effectively true. You can imbue whatever story you want into Death Stranding, into Metal Gear Solid V, and it's perfectly fine. And more importantly, we want people's work to matter. You heard that in that first video. We want people's work, contributions, intentions to matter on our server. So here is how we do that. The concept is strands and knots. A strand is a thread. It's a thread that you make. A strand is a thread. It's a thread that you make in the Discord server. It's just any thread. And that thread, that strand, is just a discussion. It's just you having this more intentional theory discussion with others, trying to work out details, getting support for your ideas, asking people questions. A forum. You've been in a forum. However, when you are ready to formalize around some set of connections that you've determined, okay, it is at that point that we will ask you to create a knot. So what is a knot? A knot is any deliverable. It's any finished work. It's something slightly more formalized, slightly more intentional than casual. You're just sitting around with people discussing the themes, trying to understand something. But when you're ready to formalize on it and make some conclusions, you can submit either an essay, 3 paragraphs with a few section breakdowns disseminating your beliefs about Death Stranding, so it could be written. It could be a video. It could be a video that you show, you cut together a few things, you make a few juxtapositions. Should be on the shorter side, nothing, maybe too long. It could be a song. If you're a musician and you just want to talk about the connections between Higgs and Sam and compare them as characters, but you want to do it with a song. You want to do it with lyrics. You want to do it with a rap. That is a knot. It can be a work of art. It can be a work of art. Maybe you do a kind of a montage piece showing the different connections between the characters. When you have formalized your knot, when you have created your knot, your song, your essay, the submission process right now is you just message a moderator. Later on, we'd like to implement a ticket system, but that submission is not for us to evaluate and judge your knot. It is just a stopgap to make sure that is submitted follows Discord's community guidelines and follows our server rules. That's it. Once we have verified that, we'll post it. And the really special thing is that when you make a knot for us and we post it on our server and everybody else in Bridges 3 posts it on their social media, I want you to put a link back to you on that knot somewhere. That link has to link to other known social media platforms. It has to link back to Twitter. It has to link back to Instagram, ArtStation, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, wherever it is that you have. That is what connects people back to you. That way, we can all be the bridge for one another. And that, to me, is one of the fundamental meanings of Death Stranding. That, to me, is one of the purposes behind Death Stranding. So much of the internet is designed to disconnect you from everything. Moderators on Reddit, people on Twitter, Discord servers, they generally don't want to do this stuff. Some servers are figuring this out, that it's really stupid for some reason to decide that you're not allowed to link people back to what they do, but I get it. People start using it as like a self-promotion platform and they just start posting constantly. Well, you can't do that on our server. You have to submit knots. Knots can also come in 2 flavors. You can have a theory knot, which is subject to that greater level of scrutiny, but you can also have an operations knot. An operations knot is a gameplay knot. It doesn't have anything to do with the narrative or story or breaking down connections to references and other works and stuff like that. It's just, here is a really cool loadout to use when you travel between the film director and South Knot. So here's one thing that I want to do real quick. So this is my stream overlay, right, that I plan to use on Twitch. But so I made an app and it's not finished yet. It's about 60% of the way there. I think I can finish it by the end of the year, but there's a few hurdles. I have to get an actual map picture. I've pilfered this from another source. So before I can publish anything, I obviously have to go get an official map. I have to approach Kojima Productions or PlayStation or somebody to get that map and get permission to distribute it. But I'm going to use this map to talk about how to place post boxes. I talked about how the post boxes are really important and how they work. The main thing is this: there needs to be at least one post box at every kind of key location. So here is this mule camp right here, right? That mule camp has, in my fake world, it has a post box next to it. And what that will allow you to do is if you just are passing through that area, you could quickly beat up the mule, empty their entire camp into that locker, and then other people can take it to its destination. Likewise over here, there's one next to the way station west of Capital Knot, right there. And then there's one right here. As you go from place to place to place on the map, there'll be packages. There'll be packages all through this area here. This route is intended to get up on this hill over here so that I can get those packages. Your basic goal is to completely clean your map. You have to get every package. And this app tool, when I'm finished with it, this will be designed to help people do that and coordinate. But you can use the in-game stuff. I hope that grants some credence that the co-op in Death Stranding is really real. But I recognize that I have a lot of convincing to do. A lot of people aren't going to believe my arguments at face value. They're going to hear them and maybe, oh, that's intriguing, but they're just going to be like, whatever. And since I am a nobody on the internet, I have no following on the internet, nobody knows me from fucking nothing. I am very blessed to have several people on the Bridges 3 Discord server who can back me up, who know how serious I am. So I have that support, and that's really good. But I am going to need so much more to complete this journey. Throughout the course of these videos, particularly in the logo section and in the final video, which will be Pathos, I will have to disseminate information that I have no business disseminating on the internet. Because my way into Death Stranding is through literary analysis. And I went to school for it. I have a double bachelor's degree in English and philosophy from the University of Colorado. I graduated cum laude with honors. I was a member of Sigma Tau Delta National English Honor Society. And I was a technical writer for 10 years. And basically the job of a technical writer is to disseminate information that you don't fully understand. The way you do that is through heavy research and referring to subject matter experts. That is what I have been doing basically full time for 4 months. Trying to build my ethos, trying to build a convincing argument. So, the Ethos series is going to be a bunch of smaller videos. They will be focused. They won't be, like broad topics. They will be focused. For example, the next video is just going to talk about the timeline of events that happened before the game. There's a bunch of things that happen before the game that are spelled out in the interviews in game. Most people don't read the interviews. You have to read the interviews to fully understand the story. After that, we're going to talk about a little bit of literary theory. We're going to learn about some Shakespeare. Hideo Kojima is very much doing a Shakespeare in his writing. He is very Shakespearean in how he approaches narrative. If you're unfamiliar with Shakespeare, that's okay. You don't have to be familiar with Shakespeare. There are certain features of his work that I want to compare, to bolster my own ethos, but also to bolster the idea that Hideo Kojima knows what he's doing as a writer. He very much does know what he's doing as a writer. Then we'll do some other level sets on Egyptian mythology and on Hideo Kojima as an author, as a game designer, as a narrative storyteller. And eventually, once we have made a firm enough argument and we have all of these reasons to believe that what we're doing, that we're not crazy, that this not only is this intentional, but it's something that literary theorists do all the time. Literature is puzzles, guys. Literature is a story you're not supposed to understand right away, just like Death Stranding, just like MGSV. So after we've built that foundation, we'll move to the Logos videos. In the Logos videos, we're just going to go connection to connection to connection very, very fast. We're not going to spend the time justifying anything. We'll have done that. We will have justified our methodology up front, okay? And then once we have made the bulk of the connections that we need to understand the larger story, to see the myth of Osiris play out, to understand the parallel narrative, then I will release my final video, which will be called Pathos. And Pathos will be where I basically disseminate my personal interpretation of Death Stranding. The logos of what I offer is going to be self-evident. I'm just going to show you, and however, drawing out meaning from all of these connections is itself a work of storytelling. So now now's the fun part. Now I just want to spill the beans on some shit. First, the sun in Death Stranding is a black hole. That was, in fact, one of the first things I figured out about the game, and it is the thing that I simply cannot seem to convince anybody of. But the sun in Death Stranding is a black hole. It's way more complicated than that. It's not something I can discuss like thoroughly in a couple minutes. Again, that's why I'm doing all these videos. The sun in Death Stranding is a black hole. Have fun with that. Here's a cool one. You can turn the catchers white, fully white, with EX grenades. They will also fall over if you hit them enough with those. I have to do it with EX2s, but they'll fall over. And we feel like this is some mechanic related to kind of freeing them or changing them or subduing them, kind of the non-lethal approach to curing and helping and, fixing BTs. This is a fun one. This is back in the day, one of our earliest tests. I went and made a Dorito chip out of directional signs, and this was kind of a stress test to just kind of figure out, okay, how many signs will show up in a person's world, and we verified that if you do get connected to somebody, when you're connected to them, all of the signs will show up. We had people who had like half of those signs in their game. They didn't have the other half because they didn't venture over there while they were still connected to me. But they did have about half of them in their world. Also, during this same test, we figured out that we could level each other's terrain. You can actually, if you're connected with somebody, strand contracted, and you walk a path in their world, it will level out their terrain. That is why the trees show up. Whoever it was that was playing and doesn't have an explanation for those trees, that is because other players are doing this, solving it, and unlocking, the trees. They're restoring the world through their connecting and through their actions. Here's another one as far as kind of gameplay goes. You can, when you defeat a mule camp, you get this little thing that says porters can now traverse this area temporarily. It isn't that porters just, if they're in the area, they decide to go through there. It adds porters to the map. And I argue this is evidence that if you do beat up the mules, if you get rid of the mules long enough, that you can probably extend the number of porters on your map significantly. We've gotten it from, I think the standard is 19 up to about 34, 35, 36, something like that. Almost doubled. And the last thing is that all of the film references, all of the characters have like an associated film. These films are way more substantive than just kind of, a good comparator to the characters. They fill in narrative plot holes. They give you more details about the characters. Dead Man has two, the 1930 Frankenstein and the film Dead Man starring Johnny Depp. This speaks to his duality, but it also tells you about his relationship with Sam. It tells you about his relationship with Higgs, moreover, which is pretty interesting. And go watch these films. This will help you understand the plot. I have not solved the final puzzle. I've been working on this shit. If you would like to try to solve the final puzzle, I'm going to flash some requirements on the screen. This is the kind of thing I'm looking for. A lot of it probably seems obvious. I need you to be able to stream your gameplay so that we can catch cutscenes and share it with other people, so that we can coordinate, so that we can talk. I play on PC. I don't have my PlayStation 5 with me, but I can go get it. I can play on PS5. I can play on PS4. I can play on anything. I just need 30 people, okay? If you want to be on the final puzzle team with me, I've been kind of cagey about what I want to talk about. I talked about the moon being a black hole. I talked about how you should go to how the films kind of interconnect with the story and give you more story information. I've given you lots of hints to get you going on some stuff. However, if you want to be part of the final puzzle team, I will literally just sit in a room and spill the beans with you all night long. One thing, though, that you have to have is commitment. You can't just say that, like, oh, yeah, that sounds good, and then join the final puzzle team, and then 5 days from now, you're just like, I'm not interested in that anymore. You have to be committed. You have to help us. You have to be that bridge for us. You have to be that strand. And if you do, if you're willing to make that commitment, I will literally tell you everything I know. I have told people all the things that I know about the game already. Some people, it has blown their minds. Some people are just kind of, like they're not really sure how to take it. All right, last things. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the Discord server. Thank you so much for taking seriously what I'm saying. I hope you're excited. This is going to be fucking amazing. This is going to be so cool watching this all play out. Finally, after 5 fucking years of believing this shit, of knowing that this is what Death Stranding was, I am finally going to be vindicated. And I am going to be fucking incorrigible. I am going to be such a shit. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,